unless they say, because
unless they tell you.
I mean, we've got, you know, the year before last when we were doing champ car stuff, when you go walk through the pits would say, you know, green fuel, green this, green that, but unless the audience doesn't see those things though, because it's on our side, the photographer's side, which is the side of the
which is what they hear. Well, you know, for example, like ALMS, which is American Le Mans Series, they talked about using alternative fuels as part of the entertainment. And they use actually 3 different types of fuels, E10, E85, and clean diesel.
E85 is being used commercially by automobiles in Las Vegas, for instance. Remember all of those stations that we drive by that we're afraid to go to because it's got, you know, E85 all over the place?
I don't realize, what do we use that for? But ALMS will only use fuels that consumers have or will soon have at the pump.
Because these are, people, you're supposed to be able to go to, okay, I mean, certainly you got to go to a better quality place. You could go to William Shatner's place and pick up a car off of his lot, out of his showroom that you could use in American Le Mans.
Right.
You could go to Exotic Cars of Las Vegas, pick up a car there and drive it in American Le Mans. There's something that you can go pick up and drive. There's supposed to be a people's race. And people don't understand that. It's not, you're not one-upping them, because I've known people in Le Mans vehicles that basically had 20-year-old Mercedes.
Oh, really?
You know Mercedes Roadsters, you know, like the 250 SL, they'd race those things. You don't have to have, remember, Le Mans is more than one category of cars. You do not have to have a Ferrari to run in Le Mans.
That's true. They have all different types of cars there. One of the things I was kind of interested in was Doug Cross, he's the technical director of the Flybrid Systems, is that they are saying that they can have about up to 45% savings for some buses with a Flybrid.
Probably, but it's a matter of convincing people. Like I said, there's an inherent battle between the people that design things and the people that think they should be another way. Currently, we have a Congress that thinks that the designers don't know what they're talking about. So,
well, that's kind of a challenge, and we're going to get to what they were thinking about the O.
We have, okay, we can guarantee you, we do know insider information in the car business. The O and the Super O are coming. The O is a 2-seat automobile, you know, just front seat, that basically a little room for groceries in the back. That gets 100 miles at a time, that uses a lawnmower-style electric engine. It's plug-in. The Super O, they take the grocery room out in the back because you've got to have room for your one kid.
I do have to admit that when they brought up the O, actually, did they call it the O? You're calling it the O in the Super O.
I'll give you a tip. Somebody that's in this room created the name the O and the Super O that people use.
We started joking about it a while ago.
It was meant to be a joke.
When they brought up the vehicle, because you know they talked about, you know, like how do you know the racing car is green, and they were showing the different slideshows about how cars have evolved and where they're going, and they put up the O. Yeah. That brought a lot of chuckles because to the crowd, it's kind of like, yeah, right, and they kind of laughed when that flag came up.
The engineers want what you're talking about here. The green people want the O and the Super O, and there's no compatibility between the two. Because
because racing cars, they're not going to be racing in those little things like the O. But you might as well go-kart races.
The people at the Race Goes Green are concerned about putting you in an automobile. They want to put you in a safe automobile that you enjoy the ride on and will get you from one place to another.
Yeah, because part of the entertainment, you know, like they were saying for ALMS, was the different types of fuels. And they use it as, like we said, it's a testing ground for what may be moving into passenger cars.
Yeah, and I can already, there's the big sad part about it. I can tell you that the green people have already said no to all of this.
Well, you know.
All of it.
Yeah.
Which is
really bad.
That's bad because we're telling you about something that the President of the United States and the people in that one party do not agree with, period. Because actually the United Nations has already condemned it, so.
That's bad. Well, you know, like when we go back to the Flybrids, yeah, that's right, the Flybrid systems which you're using for Formula Racing, hybrids, and they were talking about braking and accelerating the car, because part of it is you take the energy from the wheels and you give it back to the wheels. You move it around for balance.
They used to call it kinetic energy.
Well, that makes, no wonder why. I'm like, that sounds so familiar.
No, but I come from a different era when you were taught basic science in school. Basically, for every action, there was a reaction. And
Newton's laws of motion.
That's right.
Yep. And then they got into the future fuels for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you what they said, and you can tell me what...
Now, this one is going to be 100% accurate for the next 5 to 10 years. This one is a gimme because the facilities are already built and they're turning this out right now, but they want to go beyond. They want to go beyond this to something else. So this is the next 5 to 10 years. This is what everyone agrees on here.
Nick Hayes is renewable fuel, and he's from NHANS. And then Pete Spence, who's the technical director for Toyota Racing Development, says hydrogen sure that it's safe.
Yeah.
And
the hydrogen, we have seen the Notaspringchick has drove in the hydrogen cars.
Wait, isn't that the one Toyota used?
Yeah.
Up in like Alaska. Remember
we've seen it.
We've seen it.
Truck, the car works, and the car basically you can't tell it from anything else. But the problem isn't that it works; it's that there's no bloody place to fill the things up with because nobody wants one in their community.
That's the challenge.
But it works.
Now, if you have a car that's a hybrid, they are saying that if you want to save as much as possible, drive on the battery as long as possible, and that's how you make it extend.
Because I've actually seen, you look and you scoff at the people on YouTube and View and all the others that, well, I've got 200 miles per gallon. No, this is how to getting 200 miles per gallon. You drive on your battery power as much as possible. You basically shut your engine down.
There's no way that you're going to get there.
No, but in traffic, there's no reason when you're in a traffic jam to keep an engine idling, burning up your gas. If you're going to sit for a half hour, you might as well sit for a half hour with your air conditioner off.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, but they won't.
Here's one. They did a session with Don Taylor, Stimulate the Imagination and Entertain. That's where they were talking about how do you know if the car is green. And, monitoring and analyzing this, which is borrowing from the video game industry with a visual. Well, you know what, that makes sense.
You make it, okay. Actually, I tend to go in a warped manner. I would say, let's make a green car game.
You know what?
Yeah, let's promote green through a game that people can play in their computers about green cars.
Actually, you'd be interesting to see what people came up with. They said electric vehicles are in search of a racing showplace. Now this one I'd never heard of before. Tell me if you have. It's called the National Electric Drag Racing.
Yeah.
You have?
Yep, I've seen them. They race motorcycles, they race trucks, they race cars. And, the acceleration on an electric car is like nothing out of this earth because they don't have to go through all of the gear changes. It's just boom, it's just like that. But the sustainability is your problem.
But versus just a boost.
Yeah, so it's just the, once the thing, it accelerates, like they said, like a bat out of hell, and then, because it is an electric car, it maintains like the same speed, where the other guy, who basically is able to shift gears, he's got the advantage then when on a distance. It's why it's just great on a short track. I did see it on television. I saw they're doing electric motorcycles versus the racing bikes. Basically, right off the starting block, they beat everything. But by the end of the road,
it's like they're a sprinter versus a long distance.
That's right. They're just not built for long distance. It's a great thing for that. But see, that's also the future. I'll also tell you something else. I'm also from an era when they had steam cars and electric cars. You did have steam and electric. Gas is something that became more popular because people didn't like plugging in, and they didn't like pumping. The water continually changed. But they did have Stanley Steamer was an unbelievable car.
Really?
Yep.
There's actually one called the Stanley Steamer.
They could outrun any internal combustion engine on the road. I can also tell you of another, which you're young enough to remember, the Parnelli Jones turbine car.
I am old enough to remember that.
Because Indy 5, we say
woman